Hey, good morning. Welcome to Violet and I. It's chilly 30 degrees here in Indiana. We're going to work on the engine bay, but the welder I just broke. Something happened with the dial. So the amperage dial, it's just running, just spinning around. So I can't really tell where I'm at, man. And the metal's so thin, I burned through in a spot, so I just can't risk that. We're going to take a break from that and look at the engine components we got here. Get you spun around me here. Alright. A little bit congested today. I've been dealing with something over the weekend, so forgive me if I sound a little off here. But we got a table out here and got some of our goodies. Been piecing this all together here over the last few months. We're going to go over everything here in just a minute. Then we got the engine block over here. We're going to have to get that repainted. It looked pretty nice before we took it to the machine shop, but obviously with their cleaning process and whatnot, we had to, it removed a lot of that paint. So we're going to have to get that taken care of. Over here we got the old oil pump that we did take off, and kept some of the bearings here just for kind of look at. Also awfully filthy, obviously, because they've been sitting down. That one didn't look the greatest, but we're going to check all our tolerances and everything, clearances, when we put it together, and I'll show you how we're going to do that. These are the balance shafts. We're not going to be running those. This is another part of the balance shaft here. Not going to be running that. Head gasket we took off of it. I just got that there just for memory. I might hang it up on the wall or something. And then the oil pan. Oil pan needs some love. I'd like to find a new one, but F20b oil pan isn't the easiest thing to find. I can run any H or F series oil pan as long as I use the same oil pickup. So if it's a F23 oil pan, I need to use the F23 oil pickup because of the way they sit in the oil pan. Forgive the workbench, it's crowded over here. Got our crankshaft here, camshafts, and all the bits and stuff that we've taken off. Some of this will be reused and some of this isn't going to be reused. Now that water pump, that's a brand new water pump. We put that on before we put the engine in to find out that we had a hole in the piston. It's my fault for not doing the compression check. I'm new at this. We're going to fix it though. So we got our water neck and thermostat housing. Gotta get those cleaned up and painted. Here we have a kstuned walk blocker. It keeps that crank pulley, I'm sorry, that timing belt from walking off of the gears and whatnot. It seems to be a problem I've seen. There's a brand new OEM bushing in there. That's a brand new Gates belt. And this is how we're gonna check our clearances, guys. This is called a plastic gauge. I've never used it before. Watched several videos on it, so we're going to learn together. And then we got the assembly lube. We're going to go back over to the table here and look at the real good stuff. Aftermarket goodies, if you will. Garage is a bit of a mess, forgive me. First off, we got the brand new OEM water pump. Part number if you guys are interested. It's the H22 OBD2 water pump. I'm running a wire adapter harness so that way I can run the OBD1 distributor because the F20b originally didn't have the crank signal there on the crank, so it's in the distributor. So since I'm rebuilding it, I went ahead and got this one. Here's the part numbers on the kstuned balance shaft eliminator kit. Now they have a couple different of these kits. It just depends if you're VTEC or non-VTEC. This kit includes the block-off plate. It covers up where that larger gear assembly thing was that's sitting on the floor over there. This is a spacer for the crank here, and then these two guys are the two plugs for the balance shafts. And then the real fun is down here. We have 4 of these solid plugs that go in the bottom side of the girdle. We'll be taking out some alignment sleeves or dowels, whichever you like to call them, and replacing them with those. And then we have a tap and a plug for the oil galley that is on the block side underneath the the girdle. So what we're gonna do over here, this is the girdle. If you don't know, we're gonna take it off, and on the bottom side we'll remove the other side of the crank caps. Once we take those off, in between here where the crank caps attach to the girdle, there will be those alignment sleeves or dowels. We will remove those and put in those plugs. And then down in the block here, I believe it's, forgive me, it's on the other side in the middle, down in there where you can see my finger wiggling around, there's going to be a hole that we have to tap with that tap, and then Loctite that plug in there. In doing so, that's going to boost our oil pressure quite a bit. So they do say that there's potentially some vibration, but I don't have solid mounts, so I don't think that's going to be such an issue for me. I do plan to upgrade mounts, but right now I have an OEM, or a replacement OEM 92 to 96 Prelude driver side mount, and I had to shave that down just a little bit. We'll show you that another time, so that way it fits in the horns of the car. And then since it's a manual swapped car, I did drill a hole. I'll show you that real quick. To do the manual swap on here, you just have to drill a new hole for your transmission mount, and there was a marking honestly there where you drill that through. So I just drilled it through where it was marked and went right in. The manual swap was honestly pretty easy. The hardest part was drilling out for the master cylinder over there, that clutch master. None of those holes are there, so I had to drill all that out. I need to clean it up a little bit here before we do the painting, because it was a hassle to get that clutch master out of there, and I don't want to damage anything trying to get it back in there. On that same topic, I'm going to be ordering a S2000 clutch master cylinder and then the spacer to go on the firewall to get rid of this stock clutch master cylinder, because it has a I don't see it laying here, but I'll show you, an external reservoir. So it's got a hose and a reservoir that mounts off to the side, and the S2000, the reservoir mounts directly on top. So it's going to clean up the bay a little bit. Here we have our head studs, those ARP head studs. Over here we're working with our pistons. These are a Nippon Racing K20 Type R 86mm piston. I believe they said these are Teflon coated is what they called it. They come with the wrist pins, they come with the snap rings, slight bit of dome there. Pretty similar to the OEM piston though, so we're not looking at a huge difference there over OEM. And then the piston rings, part number there if you'd like to see. And again, that's 86mm on those pistons and on those rings. So if you remember the opening video, possibly, I had the block bored out to 86mm to accept those pistons and piston rings. It's kind of hard to get an aftermarket 85mm piston for this engine, since it's an F20b. It's not an American engine, or not a USD engine, forgive me. So you can get custom made pistons through kstuned, but those are about $700 to $800, and that's a little more than I was trying to go. These ones were about $2 something, I believe. So that's more along the budget for me. We got the block, like I said, bored out to 86 millimeters. She should be ready to rock. We're going to get that piston rings here put in and gapped here soon, and we'll learn how to do that together. I've watched a few videos, it seems pretty simple. And then back here we have our Cometic head gasket. The Cometic head gasket, the oil pump, all the seals that I've ordered over the past little while are for an H22, an H22A4. So my engine, my intake manifold is off of a 99 prelude, and the 97 to 98 and the 99 to 2001, I believe there's a difference because I had a hard time getting a thermostat to begin with. The first thermostat I got was too small, so I took it back, and apparently the thermostat for the the 99 to 2001 is a larger thermostat. So I'm not sure the whole difference there, but there's definitely a difference. We're also going to be running a thermal intake gasket for the intake manifold and a thermal gasket on the throttle body. And then we have our kstuned forged rods. These are H-beam style rod from kstuned. Nice markings to make sure you keep your caps right. And these are ARP 2000 hardware. Very pretty. So we do have to, unfortunately, either shave the small end of the piston, or I'm sorry, the rod, shave this down, or shave down a little bit of the inside of the piston where the rod and piston meet. That's the only really modification you have to do, other than boring out the engine block to 86 millimeters to be able to run the setup. There's contact there when you put the piston rod or the connecting rod onto the piston, so you need to just give it a little bit of a clearance. We'll get that taken care of here later on, probably with a die grinder or a Dremel tool, something that can access it and obviously not do any damage, but get that cleaned out where we need to get it, so we have the clearances we need. Alright, so guys, before we get to doing any painting or anything on the engine block here, we need to get it, the eliminator kit in. So what we're going to do is I'll probably get you set up on time lapse while I get this girdle and those crank caps removed, and we'll get after it here. Okay guys, here we go. Got those crank caps off of there and the girdle. This is going to be our hole right up here that's going to be tapped and plugged with our plug supplied in our kit from kstuned. And then over here on the bottom side of the girdle, we're going to be replacing the dowels here, 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 and then the larger one here with those plugs that were supplied with our kit. Here's the larger one and the three smaller ones, and then there's the Allen head plug that gets tapped and Loctited into the oil galley there. And again, these two are going to get pressed into our oil pump. I'm going to do that later on. I want to open up the Honda bond now and it all solidify before I'm really ready to use the majority of it. So we'll do that here later on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get you set back up on the time lapse, and we're going to get these guys removed and get those pins in there. From my understanding, just a set of vice grips, I'll get those out, and then just a block of wood and a mallet, and we'll pound those plugs into place. Alright guys, as you can see here, we got those plugs pounded in there. Now there's a tapered side on those, and then there's ones larger. Obviously the larger one's going in the larger of the 4 holes. 3 small holes across the bottom, 1 larger hole up top, tapered side down, and just pound those into place. Now I overlooked the fact that I'm going to need a different socket to run that tap. It's not going to fit on any 6 or 12 point socket. So we're going to go to parts store and see what we can find there. I also did not mention the bearings that we got here. These are our small side bearings here. I'm sorry, these are the crank bearings, where the connecting rod meets the crank. Those are the crank bearings, where the crank caps on the block. So that's what the crank rod's on. That's what the connecting rod's right on. There's your 2 part numbers. If I said those backwards, we'll know when it comes time, because one's obviously going to fit and the other one won't. But we're going to call it a day here. Got all our caps in line there. Keep them all straight. They have markings on them. They need to go where they go. You can't just move them around. And I need to get that O-ring right there in the middle ordered. I'll get a hold of Honda here this afternoon and get that on order. Did not get that. And these are thrust washers, thrust bearings, whatever you want to call them. Everything's ACL. Well, that'll do it, guys. I appreciate you. Gonna call it there for today, guys. We got some work done out here. That balance shaft eliminator kit started. We're gonna go ahead and get the clutch master cylinder for an S2000 and the adapter plate on order, as well as that O-ring for the girdle. And we're making good progress here, guys. Next week's video we'll probably have the remainder of the balance shaft eliminator kit installed. I need a source and a socket to run that tap in correctly. None of the sockets that I have are gonna leak onto that 4-sided end there. I got 6-point and 12-point sockets, and they're just, none of them are fitting like I'd like them to. So we're gonna see what we can get figured out there. Next week, hopefully, we'll have the welder back. Also, Harbor Freight's out of stock right now, so we need to get that exchanged. Excuse me. We'll get that done. Hopefully, next time they get a truck in. They were on sale this past week, so they apparently sold everything they had in stock. But we need to get on that block, get that plugged up, and then we can get the entire block cleaned and painted, so that way we can start getting everything assembled. Once we have the long block assembled, or sorry, it'd be the short block, since the head's not on it yet. The head is inside. I got it wrapped in a bag that came from the machine shop in. The gentleman at the machine shop explained not to have it out in an environment that gets humid and hot and cold, so the moisture issue. I'm not sure why that's an issue, probably because it's opened up and not closed up, so this valves and seals and whatnot don't get all nasty, but it's coated in oil and in a bag inside the house upstairs, just kind of hanging out, waiting for its time. We had a valve job done on that, new valve seals installed, and it's ready to go. So thanks again for watching. Please like and subscribe if it's something you're interested in. We'll get this F20b put together and built, and finish this bay up, and let's get this car going. Thanks again, guys. Have a great week.